I had been alone at Greyfen Hollow for 6 winters when the storm brought them to me, and in all that time, I had learned exactly one thing worth knowing. The wind out on the frontier does not care what you've lost. It just keeps blowing. I kept the holding for a landowner who never came, 40 acres of scrub grass and a leaning barn at the edge of territory the maps still marked as unclaimed, which meant it belonged to whoever was strong enough to hold it. Mostly that meant the war dragons. Twice a year, their patrols passed low over my fences, dark shapes reading the ground the way a man reads a ledger. And twice a year, I stood still in the yard and let them look, because standing still was the only thing that had ever kept a man alive out there. The night of the storm, I wasn't thinking about dragons at all. I was thinking about the roof over the hay store, which had started to go, and about getting the last of the mule feed under cover before the rain turned to something worse. That was when I heard the sound. Not thunder. Something smaller, and wrong in a way thunder isn't. A high, cracked shrieking that dropped low and then climbed again, like 2 voices arguing through pain. I found them in the ditch behind the north fence, half buried in blown straw, and my first thought was that I was looking at one animal tearing itself apart. A long moment of lightning showed me there were 2, wings tangled together, ooze, raking at each other in an exhausted, starving fury that had nothing left of strength in it, and everything left of fear. I had never touched a dragon in my life. I want to be honest about that, because there's no use pretending I walked into that ditch brave. I walked into it because leaving 2 half-drowned animals to finish killing each other in the mud didn't sit right in my chest, and I have never been a man who could leave a wrong thing sitting. I got a hand between them, foolish, looking back, and for a moment, I thought I'd lose the hand. Then the smaller one, the one with a torn membrane hanging loose off one wing, simply stopped fighting. It went still under my palm, the way a beaten dog goes still, not trusting, just spent. The other kept snapping a moment longer before it understood the fight was over, and folded down into the straw beside its sibling, breathing hard, eyes rolled white at the edges. I carried them to the barn one at a time, wrapped in my coat, and laid them in the empty stall where I used to keep the plow horse before the plow horse died of old age, and I never replaced her. I built up what fire I could risk in a bucket forge, and I sat with them through the last of the storm, because I did not know what else a man does with 2 dying dragon children in his barn. They lived. That surprised me more than finding them had. For the first week they wouldn't go near each other, curling into opposite corners of the stall like the fight in the ditch had never ended, just gone quiet. I fed them what I had, salted fish, then rabbit when I could snare one, then whatever I could trade 3 days' ride for at the crossing post, never once telling the trader what it was for. I learned their sounds. The bigger one, bolder even wounded, I came to call Tor in my head, for the way he'd throw himself between me and anything new that moved. The smaller one, the one with the torn wing that never quite healed straight, answered to nothing at all for a long time, until one evening she leaned her jaw into my hand while I was cleaning the wound, and I called her Wick, because she flickered like a candle about to go out, and somehow never did. I want to tell you the 2 of them made peace easily, the way it goes in stories traders tell at the crossing post. They didn't. Tor guarded food like it might vanish, and twice more I found them locked together in the straw, not the killing fury of that first night, but something almost as hard to watch. 2 frightened creatures who didn't yet know how to be gentle, because nothing gentle had been done to them first. What changed it, in the end, wasn't anything I did on purpose. It was a night in the 2nd month, when the wind came up cold, and I was too tired from the fences to build the forge fire high, and I lay down in the straw between them instead, the way you'd lie down between 2 quarreling children, not to referee, just to be a warm thing in a cold dark. I woke at first light with Tor's wing thrown over my chest, and Wick's head resting against my shoulder, and the 2 of them, for the first time since the ditch, were touching each other without either one flinching. After that, they slept in a pile most nights, the 3 of us, and I stopped being careful about what I called them out loud. I knew, the way you know weather is coming before you can see the clouds, that this could not stay quiet forever. Dragons that size don't hatch themselves. Somewhere out past my fences, there was a nest that had lost two, and a host that would not have stopped looking. They came on a bright morning, which is its own kind of terrible. I had always pictured that if it happened, it would happen in the dark, and instead, the sky over Greyfen Hollow filled with wings in clean daylight, a column of them dropping low and fast over the north fence, the way a storm front drops, and at the head of it, a war dragon the size of the barn itself, scaled deep as old iron, scarred along one jaw in a way that told you exactly how she'd earned command. I had time to think one clear thought, which was that I was a dead man, and then a second thought, which was that I was a dead man, then a soul than anywhere else. So that's where I stood. The host came down into my yard with the ground shaking under it, dragons fanning out along my fence line with their heads low and their throats already working toward something worse than fire, and the iron-scaled one, I would learn later they called her Vayan Kest, and that the host itself carried her name, came to a stop not 10 strides from me, with her eyes fixed on the barn behind my shoulder. I did not move aside. I could not have told you, in that moment, whether that was courage or simple exhaustion, but my legs would not carry me anywhere else. She looked past me into the stall, and I watched something happen in that vast, ancient face that I have no better word for than disbelief. Tor and Wick were awake by then, roused by the noise, and they had not run to hide behind me or bolt for the rafters. They had pressed together in the straw, wing over wing, the way they'd learned to sleep, watching the doorway with the same wary stillness I'd taught them without ever meaning to teach it. Vayan Kest made a sound low in her chest that traveled through the ground and up through my boots, and every dragon along my fence line went still. She lowered her great head, not to me, I understood after, but past me, toward the two in the straw, close enough that I could have touched the scarred ridge above her eye. She breathed in, once, the way you'd breathe in a room you thought you'd never see again. Then she spoke my name. I had never told her my name. I understood later that Tor and Wick must have carried it between them the only way they could, in whatever tongue passes between dragon kin, and that this whole time, in their fear and their fighting, and their slow learning to be gentle, they had also been telling their mother's host who had kept them alive. He fed them when we could not find them, she said, and it was not a question, and it was not gratitude exactly either. It was closer to a debt being written down where everyone present could witness it. He lay down between them in the cold. I said the only true thing I had. I told her I hadn't known what else you do, when something's hurting, and it's within your reach to help. She held my eyes a long moment, and something in that hard, scarred face eased, the way a held breath finally goes out. She did not bow. None of them did, and I was glad of it, because I would not have known where to put myself if they had. She only turned her head once more toward Tor and Wick, made a low sound I felt more than heard, and the two of them, after a last look back at me, Wick's torn wing brushing my sleeve on her way past, went to her. They visit still, some seasons, always in daylight, always announced by nothing louder than shadow crossing my fence. I don't call them Tor and Wick to their faces anymore. I've learned the names their own kind gave them, though I keep the old ones for myself, quietly, the way you keep the name of anyone you loved before they grew past needing you. I never did fix that roof the way I meant to that night, but I've never once regretted what kept me from it.